As I stepped off the spacecraft, the air hit me like a wall. It was thick and heavy, filled with a pungent mix of exhaust and something I couldn't quite place. The cacophony of sounds, honking cars, shouting pedestrians, and the distant wail of sirens, overwhelmed my senses. My home planet, Xyrexia, was a realm of tranquility, where the air was crisp and the sounds of nature harmonized in a gentle symphony. Here it felt like chaos reigned. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I was here for a purpose, to learn from these humans and to share my own culture. As I adjusted to the intensity of this new world, I spotted a cafe nearby, its neon sign flickering in the afternoon light. I figured it was as good a place as any to gather my thoughts and perhaps meet some of the locals. Inside, the atmosphere was warm, filled with the rich aroma of coffee and baked goods. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, as if stepping into a small pocket of comfort amidst the chaos outside. "Hey there, intergalactic traveler," a voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned to see a young man with tousled hair and an infectious smile. "I'm Eli. Welcome to Earth. What's it like out there in the galaxy?" I blinked, unsure how to respond. "It is different, much quieter. Here, everything feels alive, but also chaotic." Eli chuckled, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "You know, we humans thrive on chaos. It's what keeps things interesting. And don't worry, you'll get used to it. Just don't forget to watch out for the traffic. It's like a deadly game of bumper cars out there." I laughed, surprised by the ease of our interaction. "I'll keep that in mind. Are all humans so humorous?" "Only the good ones," he winked, taking a seat across from me. "So, what brings you to our lovely planet? An academic mission? Or are you here to conquer us?" "Neither," I replied, a smile creeping onto my face. "I am here to learn about your culture and share mine. My civilization values peace and understanding. We believe that knowledge is the key to harmony." "Wow, that's deep." Eli leaned closer, intrigued. "So you're like an ambassador of peace? That's pretty cool. I guess that makes me your tour guide, right?" "I suppose so," I said, feeling a sense of warmth towards this human. "What can you tell me about your culture?" Eli's eyes lit up, and he launched into a story about his childhood. "Okay, so picture this. I was about 8 years old, and my friends and I decided to have a kite flying competition. I was convinced I was going to win because I had the biggest kite. It was like a flying dinosaur or something. Anyway, we were all out there, and I was feeling pretty proud of myself until, bam, the wind picked up, and my kite started to spiral out of control. I listened, captivated. What happened next?" He burst out laughing, his laughter infectious. "Well, I panicked, of course. I tried to pull it back, but instead, I let go of the string. The kite took off like a rocket, and it ended up getting stuck in a tree, right over the principal's car. I was mortified, but all my friends were rolling on the ground, laughing. I couldn't help but chuckle at the image he painted. "Did you get in trouble?" "Just a little," he admitted, his grin widening. But the principal was so amused that he just made me help him get it down. Turned into a whole event at school. We ended up having a kite day every year after that. "That is fascinating. Your ability to find joy in chaos is remarkable," I said, pondering over the incident. It was different from Xyrexian culture, where laughter was often reserved for moments of peace. "Thanks," Eli replied, a hint of pride in his voice. "We humans have to find a way to cope with all the craziness around us, right? Humor helps us bond, especially in the face of adversity." "Perhaps I will learn from you," I said, feeling a blend of excitement and trepidation about what lay ahead. I sensed that my journey on Earth was going to be much more than just an exchange of knowledge. It would be a lesson in resilience, friendship, and the complexities of human nature. As I stepped into the wilderness, a sense of trepidation washed over me. The lush greenery was both mesmerizing and intimidating. My home planet, Xyrexia, was filled with harmonious landscapes, but nothing could compare to the wild, untamed beauty of Earth. It was during our survival class that I first encountered Lila, a fellow student whose energy and enthusiasm were palpable. She was demonstrating the art of foraging, her movements graceful as she navigated the underbrush with an innate confidence. "All right, everyone," she called out, her voice ringing through the trees. "Who can tell me what this is?" She held up a cluster of small, vibrant berries, their color almost glowing in the dappled sunlight. Eli, standing beside me, leaned in with a mischievous grin. "Those are definitely not for eating unless you want to see colors you've never dreamt of." He winked at me, and I couldn't help but chuckle, even though I wasn't entirely sure what he meant. Lila rolled her eyes playfully. "Very funny, Eli. These are actually safe to eat blackberries, to be specific. They're delicious and packed with nutrients." She turned to me, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Zyrexian, right? You should try them. They're a staple for us Earthlings." I reached out tentatively, plucking a berry from her hand. "Thank you, Lila. I am still learning about your food sources." I popped the berry into my mouth, and an explosion of sweet and tart flavors danced on my tongue. "This is delightful," I exclaimed, genuinely surprised at how much I enjoyed it. "See," Eli chimed in, leaning back against a tree. "You're already becoming one of us. Just wait until you try a s'more. It's like a campfire hug in your mouth." Lila laughed, her laughter brightening the forest atmosphere. "You're going to love it, Zyrexian. But first, let's focus on the basics. What if we find ourselves lost out here?" Eli interjected with his characteristic humor. "Well, if we do get lost, I'll just start making up stories to keep us entertained. How about a tale of the legendary lost alien who befriended a bear? Or how about a tale of the brave adventurers who actually used their survival skills instead of relying on humor to save themselves?" Lila shot back, a teasing smile on her face. I watched them interact, fascinated by their dynamic. Their banter was a testament to the resilience of human spirit, a blend of humor and practicality that I found both strange and admirable. It was a stark contrast to my own culture, where laughter was often reserved for moments of peace. As the lesson progressed, Max, the eccentric inventor, burst onto the scene, his wild hair flopping as he hurriedly approached us. "Guys, you won't believe what I've been working on." He held out a small device that emitted a series of strange sounds, like a blend of bird calls and electronic beeps. Lila raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What is it, Max?" "It's my latest invention," he declared proudly. "A creature attractor. We can use it to lure animals closer for observation or, for survival purposes." Eli leaned in, a grin plastered across his face. "You mean we can summon bears? Awesome. I've always wanted to be the main course at dinner." "Very funny, Eli," Lila replied, shaking her head, but I could see the amusement dancing in her eyes. Max shrugged, unperturbed by their teasing. "No bears, just small creatures. It's for educational purposes. Imagine the research we could do." He turned to me, his eyes wide with enthusiasm. "Zyrexian, you'll love this. You can observe Earth's fauna up close." I felt a surge of excitement mingled with apprehension. It sounds intriguing, but what if the creatures become aggressive? Eli chuckled. "If that happens, I'll just make them laugh. Works every time." His playful demeanor put me at ease, even as I struggled to comprehend the depth of their humor in the face of danger. As we continued our class, I found myself growing more comfortable in the group. I began to appreciate the subtleties of human interactions, how laughter could break tension, how stories could forge bonds. However, I still grappled with understanding why they laughed so readily in the face of uncertainty. What was it about human nature that found joy amid chaos? "Zyrexian, you okay?" Eli asked, noticing my contemplative expression. "You look like you're trying to solve the universe's biggest mystery." I smiled, albeit with uncertainty. "Just trying to understand why humor is so prevalent among you. It feels so different." Lila nodded thoughtfully. "It's our way of coping. Life can be chaotic, and sometimes laughter is the best way to handle fear." "Maybe you're onto something," I admitted. "I'm starting to see the value in it." As we prepared to head back, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was beginning to comprehend a piece of humanity that had eluded me before. As I wandered through the campus, the air buzzed with an unusual tension. The sky, a deep shade of gray, seemed to pulse with energy, and I felt an unsettling charge in the atmosphere. My senses, finely attuned from my life on Xyrexia, detected something ominous lurking just beneath the surface. I turned to Eli, who was walking beside me, his usual cheerful demeanor slightly dimmed. "Do you feel that?" I asked, glancing up at the swirling clouds. "It's different here." Eli squinted at the sky, a frown creasing his forehead. "Yeah, it's like nature's in a mood or something. I hope it's just a storm and not an apocalypse." I didn't quite understand his humor, but I appreciated his attempt to lighten the mood. "Apocalypse? Is that a common occurrence on Earth?" He chuckled, shaking his head. "Not really, but sometimes it feels like it with all the craziness happening. Just wait until finals week. It's practically the end of the world." His laughter was infectious, and I found myself smiling, despite the nagging sense of dread gnawing at my insides. But as we continued our walk, the wind picked up, whipping around us like an angry spirit. I glanced at Eli, who was trying to maintain his usual cheerfulness, but I could see the worry etched in the lines of his face. "Eli, perhaps we should seek shelter," I suggested, a sense of urgency in my voice. "Good idea," he replied, his tone shifting to one of seriousness. "Let's head back to the cafeteria. It's the safest place on campus." As we turned to retrace our steps, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something far worse than just a storm. The air crackled as if charged with electricity, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I glanced around, my heart racing. The other students were beginning to scatter, their laughter replaced with anxious murmurs. "Hey, everyone, head to the cafeteria," Eli shouted, trying to rally those around us. But the panic that gripped the crowd was palpable, and I saw students darting in every direction, their faces painted with fear. Suddenly, the sky unleashed a deafening roar. The sound was unlike anything I had ever heard, reverberating through my body. I instinctively reached for Eli's arm, my grip tightening. "What is happening?" "I think that's our cue to move," he yelled, pulling me along as we dashed toward the cafeteria. The wind howled around us, and I could see debris swirling in the air, a chaotic dance of objects caught in the tempest. As we ran, I could hear Eli trying to keep spirits high. "Come on, it's just a little wind. We're not made of paper." He was met with nervous laughter from some of the students, but I could see the fear in their eyes. When we finally reached the cafeteria, the doors were thrown open, and students piled in, desperate for safety. I felt a surge of relief wash over me, but it was short-lived. I could sense the tension building as the storm outside grew fiercer. "Everyone, stay calm," Eli called out, trying to organize the chaos. "We need to huddle together and stay away from the windows." I glanced around, noticing how the fear was palpable. Even in this moment, I found myself grappling with the concept of resilience. How could humans remain hopeful in the face of such danger? I looked at Eli, who was smiling despite the chaos. "How do you do that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He turned to me, his expression earnest. "Do what?" "Maintain hope, even when everything seems chaotic." He paused for a moment, his eyes searching mine. "It's all about finding light in the darkness, Xyrexian. Sometimes, laughter is all we have left to hold on to. Just remember, no matter what happens, we face it together." His words hung in the air, a beacon of hope amidst the swirling uncertainty. As the storm raged on outside, I clung to that flicker of resilience, hoping it would guide us through the chaos that was yet to come. The air crackled with electricity, a surreal tension enveloping the campus as the storm approached. It felt as if the very atmosphere was holding its breath, and I could sense the apprehension among the students. I stood there, my heart racing, trying to decipher the chaos unfolding around me. The once vibrant chatter had turned into a hushed murmur, punctuated by nervous glances skyward. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath us, and I instinctively took a step back. "What is happening?" I asked Eli, who stood beside me, his expression shifting from casual amusement to focused concern. "Just a little storm," he replied, though his voice betrayed a hint of uncertainty. "Nothing we can't handle, right?" "Not just a storm, Eli. This is different." My fingers twitched at the strange sensations coursing through me, a mix of anxiety and the unfamiliar electric energy that surged in the air. The sky darkened ominously, and I could see shadows forming in the distance. "We need to find shelter," Lila shouted, her eyes wide but her voice steady. "It's going to get rough." Before I could process her words, a violent gust of wind swept through the courtyard, sending papers and debris flying. Panic rippled through the students, and I felt an urge to run, but I glanced at Eli. He was still trying to keep everyone calm, his voice rising above the chaos. "Guys, let's stick together. Head towards the gym." As we began to move, the first lightning bolt struck nearby, illuminating the scene with blinding brightness. Gasps filled the air, and I felt a surge of fear. "Eli," I called out, reaching for him. "What if we—" "Don't worry, Zyrexian. Just follow me." He grabbed my arm, his grip firm and reassuring. I could feel his courage radiating through me, even as doubt clawed at the edges of my mind. Just then, a deafening roar erupted from the direction of the laboratory. I turned my head, my eyes widening in horror as the building erupted in a shower of sparks. A monstrous figure burst forth, its eyes glinting with ferocity, the creature we had only heard whispers about in campus lore. "Run!" Lila shouted, her voice slicing through the panic. "Everyone, get inside!" I felt rooted to the spot, unable to process the sight of the creature as it charged into the courtyard. Its growl resonated in my chest, and I instinctively took a step back. "What is that?" I gasped, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not the time for questions," Eli yelled, his face set with determination. "We have to move." In an instant, the creature lunged towards us, and Eli pushed me to the side. "Go! Get to safety!" he shouted, his voice ringing with authority. "Eli, no!" I cried out, but he was already darting towards the beast, his eyes resolute. "What are you doing?" With a swift motion, he reached for Max's invention, a device that had been intended for harmless experiments. As it whirred to life, Eli activated it, sending out a series of bizarre sounds that echoed through the courtyard. "Hey, ugly!" he shouted, his voice laced with bravado. "Over here!" The creature paused, its attention shifting to Eli. I felt a surge of panic and desperation. "Eli, get back!" I yelled, but he stood his ground, a beacon of bravery amid the chaos. "Just keep moving," he urged, his eyes locked on the creature. "I'll distract it. You guys get to safety." With Lila's hand gripping mine, we started to back away, but I could hardly tear my gaze from Eli. He was putting himself in harm's way for us, and a deep sense of helplessness washed over me. "Zyrexian, we have to go," Lila insisted, pulling me toward the gym. "We can't help him if we're caught too." Reluctantly, I turned away, moving with the crowd as we fled towards safety. The sounds of the creature and Eli's brave shouts faded behind us, and an ache settled in my chest. We reached the gym, and as the door slammed shut, I pressed my back against it, feeling the weight of my choices. Breathing heavily, I glanced at Lila and Max, their expressions mirroring my own fear. "Will he be okay?" I whispered, my voice trembling. Lila looked at me, her eyes filled with determination. "He's strong," she said, though uncertainty lurked in her tone. "We have to believe he'll find a way." But as the storm raged outside, I couldn't shake the feeling that something irrevocable had shifted within me. The realization that bravery often walks hand in hand with sacrifice hung heavily in the air, and I began to comprehend that resilience was not merely about surviving. It was about facing the storm head-on, no matter the cost. As the chaos of the storm began to dissipate, we found ourselves huddled together in a makeshift safe zone, a small classroom that had miraculously withstood the onslaught. The air was thick with tension, the remnants of fear still clinging to us like a heavy fog. I glanced around at my friends, their faces reflecting a mix of relief and lingering anxiety. It was in this moment, amidst the aftermath of turmoil, that we began to process what had just happened. Eli, ever the optimist, broke the silence. Well, that was one heck of a welcome party for our alien friend. Huh? His attempt at humor was met with a few nervous chuckles, but I could see that he was trying to lift our spirits. I admired his ability to find light even in the darkest of moments. It was intense, I replied, still grappling with the vivid images of the creature and the chaos that ensued. But you were incredibly brave, Eli. I've never seen anyone act with such courage. I felt a rush of gratitude as I spoke, recalling how he had shielded me from danger without a second thought. Eli shrugged, a humble smile spreading across his face. Courage is just fear in a fancy dress. We all have it in us, I believe. It's just a matter of how we choose to show it. His words resonated deeply within me, igniting a flicker of understanding about the human spirit that I had yet to grasp fully. Lila, still catching her breath, chimed in, "Yeah, but let's not forget the part where Eli used that crazy device of Max's to distract the beast. That was genius." She rolled her eyes playfully. I mean, who knew making weird noises could be so effective? Max, sporting a smirk, added, "It's all about the right frequency. Who needs a plan when you have science on your side?" His enthusiasm was infectious, and I couldn't help but smile at the camaraderie blossoming around me. As we regrouped, I noticed a shift in the atmosphere. The initial shock of our near escape began to melt away, replaced by a sense of solidarity. We had faced something terrifying together, and it had somehow forged an even stronger bond among us. "Eli," I said, my voice steadying as I continued, "your ability to find humor in such dire situations, it's remarkable. How do you do it?" I was genuinely curious, wanting to understand this aspect of humanity that seemed so foreign to me. He paused for a moment, his expression turning serious. "Well, it's like this," he began, looking around at the group before resting his gaze on me. "Life can throw some pretty nasty curveballs. If we let fear take over, we can't think straight. Humor helps us cope, helps us remember that we're still alive and that there's still joy to be found, even in the worst of times." The sincerity in his voice made me reflect on my own experiences. On my home planet, we valued peace and harmony, but we rarely faced adversity like this. I had witnessed laughter, but it was often a response to shared joy, not a shield against danger. "Is that how you deal with your own struggles, Eli?" I asked, probing further. "You mentioned your family earlier. Did you always rely on humor?" He took a deep breath, his expression softening. "Yeah, my family has had its share of tough times, but we've always found a way to come together and laugh about it. I remember when my sister broke her leg right before a big family trip. Instead of wallowing in sadness, we turned it into a running joke. We called her the Bionic Sister for the entire summer." Lila laughed, shaking her head. "That's classic Eli. You always find a way to turn things around." As I listened, I felt a swell of emotion. Eli's stories and his approach to life were opening my eyes to a new perspective. I realized that resilience wasn't just about being strong. It was also about embracing vulnerability and finding joy amidst the chaos. "Thank you for sharing that," I said, my voice tinged with newfound respect. "I think I'm beginning to understand that resilience is more than just courage. It's also about how we connect with each other, how we face our fears together." Max, grinning, interjected, "And how we can use science to distract monsters." The laughter that erupted afterward felt like a healing balm on our frayed spirits. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. I was no longer just an outsider. I was part of something larger, a group of friends bound by shared experiences and laughter in the face of adversity. As I stood amidst the scattered tools and sketches in our makeshift workshop, the atmosphere buzzed with a sense of purpose. My fingers danced over the blueprints for the protective device we were designing, a collaboration that I had come to cherish. Eli, Lila, and Max were focused on their tasks, their energy infectious. I couldn't help but feel a sense of belonging, a feeling that was new to me since arriving on Earth. Okay, folks, let's make sure we've got all the parts we need, Max said, adjusting his glasses and looking over the large table filled with wires, circuits, and a few obscure gadgets of his own invention. His enthusiasm was palpable, and it made me smile. Max, I think we have enough gadgets to start a small army, I said, my voice light with amusement. What exactly do you plan to do with all of this? Defend the campus from terrifying creatures, of course, he replied, grinning. Or at least distract them long enough for us to escape. And hey, if it doesn't work, we'll have some fun experimenting. Lila rolled her eyes playfully. Just don't blow anything up again, Max. We can't afford to lose more of the lab. I still have nightmares about the last explosion. She shot him a teasing glare, and we all erupted in laughter. In that moment, I felt a warmth spreading through me. Something I hadn't anticipated when I first arrived on Earth. This camaraderie was a powerful force, one that I had never experienced among my own people. My home planet, where peace reigned, lacked the chaotic warmth of these human interactions. As we continued to work, I noticed Eli glancing at me, a hint of seriousness in his usually cheerful demeanor. Zyrexian, he began, his tone shifting. I wanted to share something with you. It's about my family. Intrigued, I paused and looked at him. Of course, Eli. I'd love to hear. He took a deep breath, his fingers momentarily fidgeting with a piece of wire. Well, there were times when things got really tough. My family, we had our struggles, you know? But we always found a way to come together, usually around the dinner table. We would share stories, jokes, and even the occasional silly song. I leaned in, my curiosity piqued. Silly songs? What do you mean? Eli chuckled, a glimmer of nostalgia in his eyes. Oh, you wouldn't believe the kind of ridiculous songs we'd make up. Like, there was this one about a chicken that wanted to fly. It was utterly ridiculous, but it made us laugh. And laughter is what kept us going, even when things felt hopeless. His words resonated deeply within me. I had observed the resilience of humans, but hearing about their ability to find joy amidst the struggles was enlightening. It sounds like your family has a unique bond, I replied, a sense of admiration in my voice. Yeah, we do. Eli smiled, but then his expression turned serious again. I think that's why humor is so important to me. It helps me deal with fear and anxiety. It's like a shield, you know? I nodded, deeply moved. I see it now. It's not merely about logic or strength. It's about emotions and how you navigate through them. You humans are incredibly complex. Lila chimed in, and it's not just Eli. We all cope in our ways. Humor, stories, even music. Those are our lifelines. Max nodded vigorously, his face lighting up. Exactly. And if we can combine that with some science, we might be able to create something extraordinary. The conversation lingered in the air as we returned to our work. I could feel a profound change within me. I was beginning to understand the depth of human resilience. It wasn't just about facing danger head-on but finding light in the darkness. Their ability to laugh, to share stories, and to unite in adversity was a lesson I would carry with me. Let's do this, I exclaimed, feeling a surge of determination. Together, we can create something that not only protects us, but also embodies the spirit of your resilience. Eli grinned, his usual spark returning. Now that's the spirit. Let's make it happen. And as we dove back into our project, I realized that I wasn't just an alien student anymore. I was part of something bigger, a friendship that could weather any storm. The air in the campus had shifted dramatically since that fateful storm. A new tempest was brewing on the horizon, its ominous clouds swirling like a dark whirlpool, and I could feel the tension in every fiber of my being. As I glanced around, I saw my fellow students moving with a mixture of anxiety and determination. We were all too aware of what had happened the last time. This time, we needed to be prepared. Eli, we need to do something, Lila exclaimed, her voice cutting through the murmurs of fear. We can't just sit here and wait for it to hit us again. Eli, ever the optimist, chuckled nervously. Sure. Let's just whip up a force field out of thin air. Or maybe I'll just charm the storm away with my dazzling personality. He flashed a smile, but I could see the worry behind his eyes. Lila's right, I added, my heart racing. We must reinforce our defenses. We can't afford to be unprepared this time. My voice was firm, but my insides churned with uncertainty. My experiences on Earth had taught me that human emotions were a complex tapestry, and I could sense that this looming storm was tugging at the threads of anxiety woven into each of us. Max, the eccentric inventor, joined our conversation, his eyes sparkling with excitement. What if we built something? A contraption to help fend off the storm or at least distract any creatures that might come our way. I have some ideas. His enthusiasm was contagious, but the gravity of our situation hung heavily in the air. We need to split into teams, Lila suggested decisively. Eli, you can work with Max on the invention. Zyrexian and I will gather supplies and strengthen the campus barriers. Sounds like a plan, Eli said, nodding with a mix of determination and apprehension. Just remember, if things get hairy, I'll be here to crack some jokes. Gotta keep the spirits up, right? While Eli's humor usually lifted my spirits, this time I felt a weight of concern resting on my chest. Eli, I know laughter helps, but we need to be serious. This storm is different. I can feel it. As we began to disperse, Eli reached out, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Hey, we've got this. Together, we can face anything, even if it means cracking a few jokes along the way. His words, laced with sincerity, momentarily eased my unease. But deep down, I understood that humor could only shield us for so long. We moved swiftly, gathering supplies from around the campus. I watched as Lila organized the materials with precision, her focus unwavering. We need to reinforce the windows and doors. If we can't keep the storm out, we'll have to protect ourselves as best we can, she instructed, her voice steady amidst the chaos. Every moment spent preparing drew us closer, our camaraderie strengthening as we worked side by side. But I could see the worry etched on Eli's face as he and Max tinkered with their latest invention, a device designed to emit sounds that could potentially distract any lurking creatures. How's it coming, Max? Eli asked, his tone light, but I sensed an underlying thread of anxiety. Almost there. Just need to tweak this frequency a bit, Max replied, his hands flying over the device. If we can get this right, we might just be able to lure any creatures away from us. I stepped closer, peering at the strange contraption. Are you sure it will work? What if it attracts them instead? Eli grinned, trying to lighten the mood. Well, if it does attract them, at least we'll have a little party before we face our doom, right? Focus, Eli. Lila chimed in, her eyebrows furrowed. We need to be serious. This is not a joke. As we prepared for the impending storm, I felt a whirlwind of emotions surging within me. Fear, determination, and a newfound appreciation for the human spirit mingled together. While I struggled to understand the depth of human resilience, I knew that facing this challenge together was the only way forward. With each passing moment, we were becoming a family, and I was determined to protect my newfound friends, no matter what lay ahead. The air crackled with tension as we worked together, our hands moving frantically to reinforce the barriers around the campus. The sky, now a deep, foreboding gray, mirrored the anxiety that gripped my heart. I glanced at Eli, who was trying to maintain a light-hearted demeanor despite the growing storm. Hey, Zyrexian, he called out, plastering a grin on his face. Ever seen a storm dance? Because I think this one's about to cut a rug. I offered a weak smile in return, but inside, I felt a storm of my own brewing. The memories of the last tempest still haunted me. The chaos, the fear, and the helplessness that washed over me like a tidal wave. Lila, perhaps sensing my unease, approached me with a serious expression. Zyrexian, we need to stay focused. This storm is going to be worse than the last one. We have to be ready. I nodded, swallowing hard. I understand. We must protect everyone. My voice wavered slightly, revealing the weight of my apprehension. As we fortified our defenses, Eli continued cracking jokes, trying to lighten the mood. You know what they say about storms, right? They're just Mother Nature's way of showing off her dance moves. He laughed heartily, but I could see the flicker of worry in his eyes. The wind began to howl, and the first heavy drops of rain pelted down, splattering against the ground like a warning. The campus trembled under the force of the impending storm. We need to finish this now, I urged, my voice rising above the increasing roar of the wind. Let's secure this last barrier, Lila said, her voice steady. We worked together, our movements synchronized as we raced against time. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing the urgency of our situation. Suddenly, a crash of thunder reverberated through the air, shaking the very ground beneath our feet. I glanced up, and my heart sank. Darkness enveloped us as the storm unleashed its fury, lightning streaking across the sky like a vengeful spirit. Get inside, I shouted, but my voice was swallowed by the cacophony of the storm. Just then, I caught sight of a familiar shadow darting across the campus. The creature that had escaped during the last storm. Panic surged within me, and I froze for a moment, my mind racing. Eli, we need to move. Eli was already ahead of me, his determination shining through the chaos. We can't let it get to the others, he yelled, his voice fierce against the howling wind. In that moment, I felt a surge of admiration for Eli. His bravery inspired me, pushing me to act despite my fear. We need to distract it, I suggested, glancing at Max, who was fumbling with his device. On it, Max exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. He activated the invention, and a series of strange sounds erupted from the device, echoing into the storm. The creature hesitated, its attention momentarily caught by the noise. Eli, this way, I shouted, urging him to follow me as we moved toward the nearest building. Just as we turned to escape, I felt the ground tremble beneath us, and I turned back just in time to see the creature lunging toward us. Eli, I screamed, my heart racing as I realized he was still standing there, his eyes fixed on the creature. I've got this, Eli shouted, stepping forward with unyielding resolve. Get to safety, Zyrexian. My breath caught in my throat as I watched him confront the beast. No, Eli, don't, I cried, desperation clawing at my chest. But Eli was already in motion, his bravery blinding him to the danger. Go, he ordered, his voice strong despite the chaos surrounding us. In that moment, everything seemed to slow down. The storm raged on, lightning illuminating the fear in my heart, and I knew that whatever happened next would change everything. My heart raced as I sprinted through the chaos, my mind a whirlpool of fear and desperation. I had just witnessed Eli leap into action, a figure of courage standing defiantly between me and the monstrous creature that had emerged from the laboratory. Get out of here, Zyrexian. Now, he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos like a beacon. I hesitated, paralyzed by a mix of shock and disbelief. How could he put himself in harm's way for me? Eli, no, I screamed, my voice cracking under the weight of panic. I couldn't just leave him. He was the one who had taught me so much about the resilience and humor of humanity. The thought of losing him felt like a knife twisting in my gut. But as I glanced back, I saw the creature's ferocious eyes fixated on him, and an instinctive urge to survive kicked in. I turned and ran, my legs pumping with urgency, but my mind was still tethered to Eli. The campus was in disarray, students scattering like leaves caught in a tempest. I spotted Lila and Max not far from me, their expressions mirroring my horror. We have to help him, I yelled, my voice hoarse. Lila's eyes were wide with fear, but she shook her head, her expression resolute. We can't just rush in blindly. We need a plan, she insisted, her tone firm as she scanned the area for any potential weapons or distractions. Max, ever the inventor, was already rifling through his backpack. I have an idea. The distraction device, he shouted, his excitement contrasting sharply with the gravity of the situation. If we can lure the creature away, we might have a chance to get Eli out. My heart sank as I realized how brave Eli was being. But what if it doesn't work? I asked, a lump forming in my throat. What if we can't save him? Max looked me in the eyes, determination etched on his face. We have to try. Eli wouldn't want us to give up. I nodded, unwilling to let despair consume me. Together, we gathered our resolve and rushed toward the remnants of the lab, where Max had left the device. Keep your eyes peeled, Lila warned as we approached the broken structure. The ground shook beneath us, and I could hear the creature growling, a low rumble that sent chills down my spine. There it is, Max pointed, and I could see Eli still standing there, unwavering despite the danger that loomed so close. My heart ached at the sight of him, his silhouette framed against the chaos, a hero in a world gone mad. Max, hurry, I urged, my voice urgent. Max worked quickly, his fingers deftly adjusting the settings on the device, while Lila and I stood guard, ready to react at a moment's notice. Just a few more seconds, he muttered, glancing nervously at the creature that seemed to sense our presence. The creature let out a roar, and I felt the ground tremble beneath me. Do it now, I yelled as I felt a surge of adrenaline. Max pressed the button, and the device emitted a series of strange sounds, a cacophony designed to draw the creature's attention. For a brief moment it worked. The creature turned, its massive head swiveling toward the noise, giving Eli a chance to move. Zyrexian now, he shouted again, his voice strained but still commanding. I couldn't bear to see him in danger any longer, so I lunged forward, ready to help him escape. Eli, come on, I screamed, my heart pounding as I reached for him. But as I ran, the creature reacted. Its massive body twisted, and in a blink, it was upon us again, fury ignited in its eyes. Run, Eli shouted, but he didn't move. He was still standing there, waiting for me. I felt the weight of his sacrifice bearing down on me, and I knew that I had to make a choice. I had to trust that he could fend for himself, even if it shattered my heart. Eli, please, I cried, my voice breaking as I felt my legs falter. But he stood firm, embodying the very essence of human bravery. In that moment, I realized what made humans so resilient. It was their willingness to protect one another, no matter the cost. Lila and Max were right beside me, our eyes locked on Eli as we desperately searched for a way to help him. The creature was coming back, and I couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Let's distract it one more time, I shouted, urgency flooding my voice. We can't let his sacrifice be in vain. Together, we prepared ourselves for one last attempt, knowing that this was our only chance to save Eli. Just as we finally managed to distract the creature with Max's invention, I felt a flicker of hope surge within me. The loud, chaotic sounds of the device drew its attention, but that moment of relief was short-lived. In a sudden, ferocious movement, the beast turned back toward us, eyes blazing with a primal fury. My heart raced as I realized the danger we were all in. Eli, watch out! I screamed, but it was too late. He saw the creature's shift before I did, and in an instant he was stepping in front of me, resolute and fearless. Get back, Zyrexian! He shouted, his voice a mix of bravery and desperation. You have to run. I couldn't comprehend what was happening. My mind screamed at me to move, to flee, but my feet felt glued to the ground. Eli's determination was palpable, and I could see the resolve in his eyes, a fierce light that spoke of selflessness. Eli, no! I cried, but the words barely escaped my lips as the creature lunged forward. Just go! He yelled again, pushing me back with surprising strength. I stumbled, my heart pounding in my chest like a war drum. Time seemed to stretch, and in that split second, I felt the weight of everything we had built together. The laughter, the shared stories, the warmth of our friendship, collapsing around me like a house of cards. Suddenly, in a bold move, Eli lunged toward the creature, trying to intercept its attack. Hey, ugly! Over here! He shouted, waving his arms wildly. I watched in horror as the creature's massive form barreled toward him, and my heart sank as it struck. No! I shrieked, my voice breaking. I couldn't process the unfolding chaos. Eli crumpled to the ground, and I felt a visceral pain in my chest, as though a piece of my very being had shattered. Lila and Max rushed to my side, their faces pale with fear. We have to help him, Lila urged, but the creature loomed above us, growling menacingly. Wait, Max shouted, his eyes darting around for a solution. The device. We can use it to distract it again. He fumbled with the controls, his hands trembling. With every passing second, Eli's form became more distant, and I could barely breathe. Eli, I called out, my voice breaking, filled with desperation. He was lying there, struggling to get up, and the creature was poised to attack again. Ziresian. Eli's voice was weak but somehow filled with encouragement. You have to go. Get to safety. His eyes were fierce, but I could see the pain etched across his face. No, I won't leave you, I shouted, my resolve hardening into defiance against the very force of fate. We had been through so much together. I couldn't abandon him now. Please, he gasped, his breath labored. You're stronger than you think. Just trust me. And live. It was like he was pulling at my heartstrings, urging me to make the right choice, but I felt paralyzed. Max finally managed to activate the device. The cacophony of sounds erupted, filling the air with a chaotic melody that seemed to confuse the creature. It hesitated, looking from Eli to the noise, giving us a fleeting moment of hope. Now, Lila shouted, urging me forward. We have to try. In that moment of distraction, I rushed toward Eli, ignoring the terror that gripped my heart. Help me, I cried to Lila and Max together. We pulled Eli away from the creature, but he was heavy, and I could feel the weight of his injuries. Just as we thought we had him safe, the creature regained its focus. With a swift, powerful movement, it lunged again, and I realized we were still in grave danger. No, 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 I screamed, desperately looking for a way out. But in the chaos, Eli turned back to face the beast, his eyes fierce yet filled with a bittersweet resolve. Zyrexian, he shouted. Get out of here. Go. I felt the tears streaming down my face as I shook my head, unable to process what was happening. Eli, please. But then, in one final act of bravery, Eli surged forward, trying to protect us. The creature's massive claws swiped at him, and I could only watch in horror as everything fell apart. No, I gasped, collapsing to my knees as Eli's body fell, lifeless, to the ground. My heart shattered as I crawled to him, cradling his head in my arms. Eli, please don't leave me. You can't just go. I looked up through my tears, but the creature was gone, and all that remained was the suffocating silence of loss. Eli, I promise, your courage and your humor, they will live on in me. As the realization of what had just occurred sunk in, I felt a wave of despair wash over me. Life was unpredictable, cruel in its randomness, and I understood then that sometimes, no matter how hard we fight, the good does not always triumph. And in that moment of grief, I finally began to grasp the complexity of human resilience. Not just in survival, but in the tender, aching way we hold on to love and memory, even amidst the chaos and uncertainty of life.